Are you a sewing wannabe? Check out our special operations equipment. Okay. Hello there, Jeff in rainy Newfoundland, Canada. Hope things are going well for you there. Your boy Ford, good evening. How you doing? Hope everybody's going to have a good 4th of July. I'm having one of them, you have good days, bad days. Today's not a great day. So it's not a bad day in anything, just not feeling real cool. You just, I was going for like 2 weeks and I kind of run out of steam. And so if I seem a little, that's what it is. I'm trying to hang in there, but one of them days. Ken Aldridge, good evening, brother. Tim Pierce, good evening. Bob, good evening. Southwest Ohio, happy 4th of July. Mr. Caldwell himself, hello there, brother. Hope you're doing well. Oh, cool, Gray Wolf. You got your 50 semi. Awesome. That would be cool. Yeah, you and I'll climb all over that thing with you. I grew up on semis. Donald, thank you very much. Gear boy, I'm doing my best. I'm gonna try to hang in with it. You just feel kind of like, it's not a bad heart thing or stroke or nothing. I think I just ran out of juice. I'm having to lose some weight because I'm a little too awesome, and the doctors and I have talked and agreed that I need to lose some weight. So I've been doing that, and the last 2 days it's just been dragging, and so it may be a little bug or something or whatever, but I'm just not very energetic. So Randy Robbins, good evening. 2020, good evening. Tim Harper, what time does your live stream start? Usually right before 7 p.m. Central Time. Just a few minutes, like 10 till, something like that. But you can about bet that about 7 p.m. Central Time is when I'm supposed to be on. Paladin, good evening, and thank you. James Singer, hello to Columbia, South Carolina. Oh, yeah, Gray Wolf, I hear you. You got to move stuff when that happens. I mean, the woods is on fire. That's all there is to it. You just got to move stuff because that fire is not going to respect it. Jerry, good evening. Landau trailer and messing with air brakes. Oh, yeah. I drove 18-wheelers for several years, and I learned to drive on an 18-wheeler when I was 12. My daddy was a truck driver, and so he pulled the truck, no trailer, into a big old huge cow pasture that a friend of his was converting from cow pasture over to agricultural fields. And he had gone around with a deep disc and plowed up dirt about 20 yards in, but left the center like one giant island of unplowed dirt. And so Daddy knew that if I ran into that, I'd just bog down and I wouldn't hit nothing. And so he put me out there and told me, figure it out. And so I've been watching him since I was 5. And in about 45 minutes, I was able to drive it around, go between hay bales and everything, and back up and all that. He hopped up, climbed in on the passenger seat, and he said, all right, go this way, turn left, turn right, do all this stuff. And about 2 hours after I had started learning to drive, he said, all right, go through the gate, get out on the county road, put the flashers on, stay at 25 miles an hour, go down the road. And so that was my learning experience on how to learn how to drive. And he said, you learn to drive on an 18-wheeler and you don't wreck, car, pickup truck's nothing compared to this. And he was right. Andy Knight, hello to South Carolina. Charlie, hello to Syracuse, New York. Hello, Bear. He's in the house. Will, hello there. Bear's old ways. Bear's getting quite a bit of attention now. I told you, you give him a chance. Once he gets retired and gets his stuff going, he's gonna be all right. He's gonna do real good. I'll be asking him for his autograph after a while. Oh, twin stick, yeah. I only drove a twin stick once for about an hour, and I was always a single stick, 10 speeds, 13, something like that. Where I'm at, we don't have the mountain thing, so you have doubles. And I didn't run those super heavy equipment type that had to have twin sticks. But I did get to drive one for about an hour one time, and it was entertaining figuring out how to shift it. I'll put that. I tell you, the most difficult one to drive actually was a cab over Kenworth mobile home carrier. Short, pudgy little dang, length on it. It didn't have no wheelbase to speak of. Big old huge engine and gearbox, and it would pull off in eighth gear, without a trailer on it. And so, and the gears were real narrow together. And it was a 13-speed transmission, and it was a pain, And I climbed in it the first time, and I was working for this guy. We was moving mobile homes, and we had gone to Texas. And then once we had driven 17 hours to Texas to drop this off, then he pitched fit us to drive nonstop back. Oh, and you're driving, meaning me. I'm going to get over here and sleep. And so I'd been up running escort the whole time. And then I got to turn around and climb behind the seat of that and drive him back home, And he wanted me to just drive him home. So 17 hours back, I'm going to sit over here and sleep. I'm the boss. I can do it. Yeah. It was a interesting trip coming back. I'll put it that way. Gary Graham, hello there. Twister, hello. Dances with Empties, glad to see you. Washburn Billy, hello there. $117 Rebel, I'll do my best. Oh, yeah. Mitchell, you've got one of the Kamingas that had the radiation because they had the glowing dials and all. Andy, yes, there is. I did the video on it with Bear 2 days ago for the next step. We're talking about replacing the nipples on it. And we had bombers and fighter jets coming over us, and I deleted the video. All you heard is fighter jets. And so I will be reshooting that video tomorrow, and it will be posting on this Saturday on my channel. So, yes, we are proceeding and going forward. Anything goes. Hello to the wet, wonderful mountains of Vermont. Will, what's your favorite weird cartridge? Mine is 41 Magnum. 7.62 by 2.5 and a CZ52. That's my favorite weird cartridge. It shot really good. It penetrated really good. It was cheap when I had them, and amazing accurate for that gun. But CZ52 and a 7.62 by 2.5. That was a real odd one I liked. Yeah, Mitchell, it has that radiation warning on the back because it's got iridium dials in them. Now, by the 80s, they had changed it, but in the 60s, they still had them. Oh, Sasquatch, sorry to hear that. And it's not cool in Phoenix, so it's kind of warm out there. Charlie, glad that modification worked on the 60 and the 58. It's little bitty things that, I mean, putting a little notch or whatever. And back in my percussion revolver series, I do quite a bit talking about tips and tricks and little things to try, because I had to learn them because I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford, when I was really, really heavy into these when I was a young man, I couldn't afford to get and fix. I had to just try to make do what I had. And that's 25, 30 years experience I'm trying to pass on through the percussion revolver series. But yeah, little tips and tricks make your life so much better. Jerry, okay. I mixed one. 93 to 95 in Michigan on Saturday. Mark, I hear you. Humidity fans. Oh, yeah. Up there at the Great Lakes, you got humidity like I do. That's the reason in northern Ohio and all, it's so humid up there. Well, it's Great Lakes. If you get lake effect snow, you get humidity. That's all there is to it. Mark, yeah, the 41 Magnum is a really nice cartridge. And I had a Ruger Blackhawk in it years ago and really enjoyed it. And then somebody who wanted to do hog hunting talked me out of it. But they were really nice. Justin's in the house. Hello, brother. Torkarev and 762 by 25, not 35, Justin. Torkarev is in 762 by 25. Yep, correct. You got it. 25. Kent, okay. I will probably tomorrow. I'll check and make sure I log you down and everything for your order. Appreciate the support, brother. Good, Justin. Glad to hear it. Yes, Mitchell. Well, here's how to test a compass. Any compass. You need to nail it. Nailing means take the compass. And for once, I don't have what I'm about to talk about sitting here in front of me. Take the compass. Make sure you're not around any metal, including a steel bracelet or something. And you want to turn it so it's pointing due north. Then take you something like a 16-penny nail, something that's obviously steel, okay? And come up here and see how close you can get. Come from the side of it like that till you make that needle move a little. How sensitive is it? Because, like, that's a hardened steel pin. When I got close to it, that needle should move. Some of them, you can touch it and it don't move. Or you put it up there and it goes, and it'll turn. Those are not sensitive enough for really good land nav, because you think you're going right and you're drifting off and it keeps pointing that way because it's not sensitive enough to turn, see? So you're way off before it ever turns and tells you, oh, by the way, Dad, you're in the wrong area. I want one that when I'm that far out and I can see the needle move. And so I tell people, if you're going to go buy a compass, and I learned that from my uncle who'd been a Marine in World War II. He said he'd been taught that by an old Marine who had been in all the banana wars. And he said when they went and got compasses to take to the field, he said you got the whole box of them. He'd pull one out and sit there and do like that till he found the one that was the most sensitive, and that became his. He'll carry it. Because a lot of times they had to turn them in when they left bases, and stuff like that. So always check a compass and see how sensitive it is. Metalworks. How come the old Mosin Gap was crazy expensive now? Years have passed and supply dried up. Now it's the ones that came in. Russia's not getting rid of them anymore. We're not friends with Russia anymore, and they're not giving them away anymore. Same thing with the guns that were coming out of China. And you could get an SKS for $65 in the wrapper, Cosmoline, never fired. I bought like 25 of them and turned them into hunting rifles and gave them as Christmas presents. But them days is gone. Dancing with empty. Yep, a 276 Peterson. You know, we adopted the 276 Peterson in 1939, right before the war. And Douglas MacArthur said, no, we're not doing it, because he knew we were about to go to war. And he said, we are not adopting the Peterson rifle, or that we're staying with the Grand. And that's the reason at the end of the war, when the war was over, England came out with a 276 Peterson because they were sure we were going to jump back to it. And then we didn't. And we forced them to cut up all them guns and said, nope, 7.62 NATO is what everybody's got to have. And the 276 Peterson rifles that they had just spent money that they didn't have to make, they had to cut them up because they couldn't be adapted. And we had to loan them money to buy the FNFALs. And we had hinted to everybody in NATO, we're going to standardize FNFALs. Everybody's going to have an FNFAL. And then we adopted the M14. That's the reason in the 1980s, when Norway got rid of their 45 1911s, that's the reason Britain went to hitting us over the head going, standardization. Every nation's using 9mm. Get rid of your 45s. Because Norway had theirs, and so we said, well, we're two NATO countries. You're the only one. Get rid of them. And so they had to mothball, which, truthfully, we hadn't bought a new 1911 since 1941. And so they were worn out. And so we went with the Beretta and ran with it for 30 years. So they never forgot, though, that 276 was a nice cartridge, but they really didn't want to get rid of it. Wade, yes, Westinghouse and Remington had 91 Nagats, and I've had one of each over the years. Jonathan Frisbee, my fearless friend, how are you doing? .117 Rebel, yeah. When they uncorked and those began rolling in by the crate load in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a real shock. It really was. Yep, very true, Randy. You can build ARs far cheaper than you can get a lot of these guns. And Tony York, good evening. Wade, I agree. Especially if you're talking fully automatic, the FAL is a better gun than the 14. The 14, we were so used to the Grands that transitioning to the 14s was good, but when you tried to have selective fire, the 14 dances all over the place. It really does. It's a very accurate gun, and if we had just removed that completely and said they're semi-automatic only, but it's a 10-pound rifle with a 20-round magazine, and we went into Vietnam and we're facing guys with a 10-pound AK and 10 30-round magazines. We were outgunned left, right, and center in sheer capacity. I mean, that's what had happened. We had came up with the Craig. The Craig was a fantastic gun. And then we went to Cuba and came up against Mausers and their speed loading system, and we had to get rid of the Mosin and Mosin. We had to get rid of the dang it, I just said the box on this Craig. We had to get rid of the Craig, and we made the 03 Springfield, which was a copy basically of the Mauser design. In fact, after World War I, we had to pay Mauser a fee that we agreed to produce our rifles. And in World War II ended, we had to go to the Mauser company again and pay them for all the 03s that we, and 03 A3s that we had issued and made throughout the war after the war was over, because we had used their patent. So 117 Rebel, the Stoner 63 was a fantastic special teams gun. Navy SEALs loved it. It was not a good choice for a standard infantry weapon. The fact that it could be set up as a sub gun or a heavy belt fed was great, but it worked great in special teams, but it did not hold up really for the other, just because it was too many moving parts, too many things that could go wrong. But for short duration special teams where you're going to be hitting and hitting hard, this gun is only going to be in the field probably 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks at most. Alert teams might be a month, but they're not shooting. You know, I ever get Grouch to come on one of these things with me and get him to talk. Like he said in Force Recon, if you pulled the trigger, you screwed up. They carried half the combat load of ammo because their job was to sneak and peek and get information, not to get engaged in the firefight. And in fact, their standing order was, if anything happens and somebody goes bang, you drop everything and run like hell. They prided themselves that they could make 10 miles in 1 hour to outdistance being tracked down, because if you have to shoot, and so they didn't carry that much. And so a stoner or something like that, yeah, would work, because it wouldn't be putting into such heavy firefights and everything else unless it was life and death. And then when you got back, the armors went through it with a fine-tooth comb. So the 63 was a fantastic design, I give you, but it really didn't. It was too complex to really put into the standard issue. It really was. Christopher Evans, good evening. Texas Joe, happy 4th of July. Kent, yeah, you had a Turkish Mauser. If you ever get another gun that's just packed solid with Cosmoline, get you a can of that spray brake cleaner, that ether type spray brake cleaner. It'll melt it. Wipe off the bulk you can, you know, scrape it off, whatever you do. When it gets down to where it's start spraying, and it will just melt and it'll run like it's water. So, which FAL do you like? I liked the Israeli. I got to shoot the Israeli quite a bit. It was in 7.6251 NATO, and really liked it. I have fired a Belgian, and I have fired one of the African pattern ones. It was African pattern. But I really like the Israeli one that I had. I didn't own it. I got to shoot it quite a bit because I had a good friend of mine that he liked my black powder stuff, and he says, "Look, I'll bring the foul if you'll just bring that gun." And so I would tote a Zouave and a bunch of percussion revolvers out there, and it was a fair trade in my eyes. Tim Pierce, have you ever thought about adding an electric drive motor to your Chinese sewing machine? Michigan Silverback, howdy. I have, but I tell you, I prefer what I'm doing, because most of my prototypes and stuff, there's a lot of turning stuff around. I go and I'm doing, etc. I like it. I've got an old-fashioned Singer treadle machine that I run it, you know. And so between those two, I like my Chinese. I can set it up here right now, bolt it, and I can be sewing in 5 minutes and do a small project or whatever, and then finish, hook it, and throw it back up on the shelf, and not have to set anything up. And when you start adding in electricity, it works better, yes. And for somebody that wants to do a lot of it, might be worth it. But I like it as that hand crank. In fact, that was what really sold it to me, because I didn't want to have to go dig out my big Singer sewing machine and open up the cabinet and sit it up there and hook the belt up and go to sewing. I'll just sit up on the table and put 2 C clamps and go to sewing. So. Jerry, any plans for tomorrow, Blackie? Yes, actually, we're doing some housework tomorrow. I'm getting up at about 6, and I'm going to do a couple of videos right quick. In fact, I've got a list of videos listed down that I need to do, and then be back about 9:30 or so. I'll get Mama up out of the bed, have breakfast for her, and then we will start doing the house chores and the air conditioning. And then probably at about 12:30 or 1, that'll be done. And I'll be sitting in this chair editing videos. That's the game plan. No partying or nah. No, been there, done that. Got all the t-shirts I ever want. I'm just gonna kick back and enjoy. No apologies. Do you have a 59 Sharps? I had one from Dixie Gun Works years ago, the percussion Sharps. And if we rework, they do make a very nice black powder rifle. They really do. I was using paper cartridges where I would drop the lead in. I had a short starter. I'd seat it and I slid the paper cartridge in behind it and closed it and put on the percussion cap. And I got that thing to be pretty dang accurate out to 250 yards. I hunted with it for a couple of years and really enjoyed it. Tim Harper, I would like a stainless steel muzzleloader with a flintlock and percussion lock you could swap in and out. Where did you get your Chinese sewing machine? I got my Chinese sewing machine off of eBay for $89. It is officially listed as a shoe repair sewing machine, and it's got these three little spindly legs. Forget that. Do like I did and just put you a 2x8, I think it is, underneath it and bolt it to that so you can sit it on a table or something. Use two C clamps. Works fine. The Chinese sewing machine is just a copy of an 1800s English sewing machine that was called a Baker sewing machine, and so they just copied it 1-to-1. And but $89 is what I paid for mine. I think they're running up to about 150 now. It just depends. Yeah, brake cleaner exactly will remove cosmoline, and Coleman fuel do it too. Diesel fuel will do it too. Kent, yes, they do. They have the old World War II Gators. Just tell them what, and they probably got that kind of large size. It was a mere mortal size. They don't have anymore, but they probably got them big sizes. Charles Martin, I hear you. Gray Wolf, it is an interesting design, and I tried the paper cartridges, and I found I've been doing some behind the scenes research. Um, point it down, drop the lead straight into it so it'd go up, and then take a short star and make sure it was just seated into the rifle. Don't shove it on down the barrel, but just seat it. And then the paper cartridge was slid in where the front of the paper cartridge was pure powder, and that last 10 grains was cornmeal, fairly compacted. And I knew that when it sheared it off, it should come up. I should see a little bit of black and cornmeal. If I didn't see black, it ain't deep enough. It went too deep, and I got pure cornmeal. But that told me I was in the right place. But I'd shear it off, and I wasn't wasting powder that way. See, that cornmeal filler at the back of it. And then I would stick my musket cap onto it. And I even had the nipple from Dixie Gun Works that would allow you to use a standard number 11 cap, and it would shoot fine until it got fouled out after about 50 shots. But you had to break it down, and it's got that floating chamber inside the bolt that seals it up. And so, unlike a regular cartridge sharps, you got to drop the block out when you clean it and slide those two pieces apart and clean it in there and lube it. Otherwise, if that gets corrosion in there or whatever and it sticks closed or whatever, you'll have just flash every time you shoot because it won't seal up. That's one of the ways it seals. So. Wade, okay, I will look for it. Yeah, let me know when you're going to be at Kaufman's. And Wade, didn't I give you a phone number to get a hold of me? Email me there and I'll give you my phone number. So now on next week, the 10th, I think the 10th, I'm going to be going to see Grouch. And then on that Saturday, I'm going to go see Grouch. But I can shift that day around, work around you. Just so let me know whatever day you're going to be there. And we'll work it out and meet. Ground Fog, good evening. Ken, mere mortal size. Kent, my daddy would walk. My daddy was like 6'4", 255 pounds and solid. He would walk in and say, I found the boys section. Now, where the men sizes at? Yeah, Charles Martin, that'd be a real challenging one to do. No apologies. Cool. Oh, dadgummit. Gray Wolf, the old screw breech. He's the one that died on the Ferguson rifle. The Ferguson rifle. You grab the back of the trigger guard and do one full revolution and the screw would go down. You drop the ball in, fill the chamber full of powder, opened up the frizzen, held it level, screwed it back up, and wiped the excess powder into the pan and closed the frizzen. Ferguson rifle. There was a company, I think, October, made a copy of it a couple of years ago. They were pricey, but screw breech. Will, what's your favorite bird to hunt? Quail. Haven't done it in a while, but quail was my favorite. I love the explosion of it right there at your feet and snap shooting. I loved it better. I hated, well, I didn't hate. I sat in a dove field many times for the family to try to get doves, and I was okay. I was never a great wing shooter. Just wasn't my thing. I was really good with a rifle, but I was just never a really good wing shooter. I was adequate. But snap shooting at close range, I was pretty dang good. Duck hunting and stuff like that, that was freezing your butt off, you know. So that was my favorite bird to hunt. I can remember sitting in an aluminum boat just north of Mobile in them swamps. And it was about 14 degrees that morning with a heavy, misty like fog coming in off of the Mobile Bay and ice forming on the sides of the boat and everything. Us sitting there in a duck blind and the dog looking at me like, you even think about shooting something, I'm going to rip your ear off. And I had time, as my grandfather said, to reflect. And I reflected on having to have special permits, duck stamps, the boat, the blind, the special training for the dog, the gun that could handle steel shot, the special steel shot you had to get, you know. And I added up all of this together and I said, I am out here not in Montana going for a record elk, or not in Alaska going for a moose or a polar bear. No, I'm sitting in a swamp in lower Alabama in a boat, freezing my butt off to shoot a duck, which is one step above a chicken. And I can go down to the Peking Palace Chinese restaurant down here and get a plate of fried duck any day of the week for $12. Why am I in this boat? And that was into my duck hunting. I gave that up, traded off all the gear, sold the dog off, everything, you know, and just, I got better things to hunt. Justin, yep, that's an eight. They made both the third model Dragoon, the 1860 Army, and the 51 Navy, 61 Navy could be had with the canteen stock. for carrying water. And like Bear pointed out a while ago, they had coffee grinders. There were a lot of different things that they came up with. Yeah, Justin, that's cool. I always wanted to come out west and hunt grouse. You know, I've shot pheasant. I went up to Kentucky and shot pheasant one time. I've shot ducks, geese, horse quail, snipe. There is such a bird as snipe, and there is actually a season for it. There's like one or two other things that I've hunted, but I never got to go out there and shoot prairie chicken. You know, the grouse. I thought that'd be cool. Yeah, woodcock hunting. I hear you. Michigan silverback. I always felt like waterfowling was too complicated and expensive. It could put a lot on. Now, shooting a goose, one hit, and that's Christmas dinner. Yeah, I'm in for that. You know, but duck, you know, half the time that you wasn't the only one shooting, and when you got the duck, you're spitting shot the whole time you're eating the duck. So it just, you know, I figured out this wasn't something that I really needed to be in. Charles Martin. Oh yeah, duck eggs are really good. Below a chicken, I got you. Yeah. I don't know. I click on it and it just says you're number 3 top fans, I guess. It's saying Tim Pierce and Bailey, and then you're number 3 top fans. I don't know. I guess it's something that they've started doing to show who's doing the most comments or whatever up here. I don't know. Yep, fire ants wiped out the quail. Here it was the coyotes came in and went to get them. It'll kill. Blackie, how do you cook a goose? I cook it very much like I do a turkey. I would take and put into the main body. I would put a sweet Vidalia onion. I would put a apple sliced into 4 or 5 pieces, and 1 or 2 sticks of celery, and a couple of cloves of mashed up garlic. I would then take the wings and fold them underneath it. Oil the whole thing with peanut oil. I would put the oven at 500 degrees, slide it in, close the door, give it about 30 to 45 minutes at that, depending, until it was nice, beautiful golden brown. Then I'd open the door, drop the temperature down to 350 degrees, give it like 10 minutes, center it up, close the door, and then I'd give it about an hour. And after the hour, I'd take my heat thermometer. Oh, one more thing. I would make an aluminum bra over the white meat on the top of the breast, and I'd take that off. You know, whenever it had browned after the 500 degree, 30 to 45 minutes, then I would take it while the door's open, put the aluminum foil on it, let the temperature drop down, slide it back in, close it up at 350 for about an hour. When I check on it, I'd use a heat thermometer, and I want the white meat to be somewhere around 175 to 180. And I wanted the dark meat to be 175 to 80, and I wanted the white meat to be around 160. And if it was within 10 degrees, pull it out, let it sit, cover it over with aluminum foil, and let it coast the rest of the way. Don't cut it. Leave it for about at least 2 hours before time to eat. You'd be amazed how hot that thing still will be. And then actually start slicing it and serving it. And that's exactly the same way I cook a turkey. And never had any complaints. Yeah, Patriot Preacher. Wives always saying it. His goose is cooked. True. Caesar, have you ever shot cartridge loads for Brown Bess? Brown Bess, my load was 85 grains of 2F, 85 grains of 2F, and then I would punch out a 3/4 inch hole punch and get them at Harbor Freight, a whole sets of punches out of the soda box cardboard like this, 3/4 inch. So I would put down would go the 85 grains of 2F. 4 cards would go down, equal measure, 85 grain measures, use that as shot on top, and then put 2 cards on top of that. Same thing. So it's one thickness card. I'm just using 4 and 2. And that's what I shot in my Bess as a heavy shot load for shooting birds or something like that. Now, what size shot depends on what you're after. If you're going for something small and fast, use 8s. If you're going for small game, use 5s or 6s. And if you're going for big stuff, use like 4s or 2s. Hope that helped. Dance was empty. Good night. Thanks for dropping in. I hear you, Gray Wolf. It's very picturesque. It's not very practical. The big hearths only work if you got a big, long fire going in them to radiate heat in the kind of coal you're doing. They lose so much heat. They really, really do going up that chimney. You can make a hearth, but then on the inside, you got to neck it down to a pipe because if you have it straight up, forget it. You just not. I can remember a family member that had an old plantation house that had been built in the 1820s. When I was a little boy, my Uncle Bill had it. And that hearth is exactly what it was. I mean, was now the living room, but it had been the kitchen back when this was a plantation house. And that fireplace was 5 foot from the bottom to the bottom of the mantle. See, that's where the opening was. 5 foot by 7 foot. It was 7 foot wide, 5 feet high, and then it made the circular curve back there. And then you got to stand in there and look up, and it had necked into where it was a 24-inch square at the top. Where the so it was about 3.5 feet deep. Maybe at least 3.5 feet. But it was meant for putting big hunks of firewood, getting a big old bed of coals going, and you'd shovel coals from that from a central fire. You'd have roasts going and all kinds of stuff, and a baker's sitting there for the heat. It must have been hell in that kitchen in August, but I can remember it as a boy them trying to heat the house with it, and that thing would eat up some firewood. Yeah, the old Evans, they got the circular internal drum. Helical coil, yes. I never had an Evans. I've seen pictures of them, and I don't recall ever handling one. Cook, howdy. Do you ever read any Charles Askins gun articles? That name rings a bell. It really does. Oh yeah, the Burnside. You open it up and set it in there. It looks like a little ice cream cone. Yeah. Mitchell, you talking about duck and goose and all. What kind of dessert do you like? I kind of like the flavor of mincemeat, but real mincemeat. One of my favorite desserts is baked sweet potato with a lot of butter and brown sugar. I mean, that is, throw ice cream on it, you're over the top, you know. But banana pudding, oh yeah. Of course, cakes, pies, all of the above. My mother made a really, really good lemon pie. It was so sour, very few people could eat it, but I loved it as a child. And that's one of the few things I could truly say my mama cooked that I really, really liked was when she'd make icebox lemon pie. Jonathan, be safe, brother. It'll kill. Blackie, can you tell the difference between pure lead and impure lead by looking at it? No, but here's a simple little test you can do. If it is pure lead, you should be able to take your fingernail and put a scratch on it. Lead is actually softer than your fingernails. So if you can bear down and drag your fingernail across it, I know you won't be able to see it, but I just put a clean scratch on that, then it's pure lead. If they put any kind of antimony or tin or whatever, it'll be too hard and you can't scratch it with a fingernail. And so that's how I used to tell if it was pure lead or not. Whenever I'd be picking up lead to try out for something, I'd run my finger over it. And if it had something mixed in it, I'd cook it longer. I'd put it in the pot and just let it go. And every half hour, come over and stir the pot and throw flux into it, borax, to cause all the stuff to come to the top, and throw a hunk of beeswax into it and let it bubble at the top. Be careful, it'll ignite. The fumes will ignite, burn off the gases and etc. And eventually you'll cook the tin and stuff out of it. If it melted together to form an alloy, it will demelt and come out most of it. So if you've got a harder lead, you can make it softer by just cooking it longer. It'll never get truly soft. It won't go back to pure, but it will get a lot softer. I have Michigan. I have not seen that yet, but I love the old Vietnam jungle cameras. You've seen me wearing them things all the time. I got one shirt's laying 5 feet from me over here. That's one of my favorite go to the woods shirts. That's an original Vietnam issue. I got like a dozen of them. I picked them up like a buck a piece back when they were surplus in the late 70s and early 80s. Gray Wolf, that sounds good. Jerry, it is putting ice cream on a sweet potato, vanilla ice cream on a sweet potato. It is. We was poor. Bottom line. Awesome. Barry, you got New Townsend catalog. We'll have to look at that. Ken, I have not heard that, which I didn't get to. I remember when all of those old original Gunsmoke radio episodes used to be able to go in a Cracker Barrel and they sold them. I knew a lot of truckers, it was like having online books. You'd get out middle of the night and there was nobody on the CB or something. We'd pop in a tape and just play something I had to listen to. But I never got into all of them. But I haven't heard of it, but it would be a very effective way to burn somebody to death. I tell you what. Jerry, it does. When you add the ice cream to it, it's kind of like a cobbler then. Good, Michigan Silverback. I hope you do. I hope they would bring that back. That's the thing, Kent. I have seen people eat stuff differently in different parts of the country. And I can clearly remember going and eating a sandwich with his family at some place in Mississippi. And they didn't use mayonnaise, they used sweet butter. So it was bread, sweet butter, ham and cheese, and sweet butter on bread. They didn't use mayonnaise, they used sweet butter. And it was a different experience. Wasn't bad, but it was, not what I was used to. So when you're traveling around the country, you'll find a lot of local things like eating boiled peanuts. We do that down here in the South, and I have seen a lot of people think, "Oh, I'll make $1 million. I'll haul peanuts up to Yankee Land and put them on it and cook them, and everybody will eat them." North of Tennessee, people don't eat boiled peanuts, and the other side of Mississippi doesn't eat boiled peanuts, and below Orlando, they don't eat boiled peanuts. So it's a deep South thing. So you can't get a lot of people to eat them. I have won some people over though and got them to try it and actually liked it, but it's just different. $117 Rebel, gumbo on potato salad would probably work. I haven't ever eaten it on potato salad. I've eaten it on coleslaw before, but I haven't had it on potato salad. Chris, good evening. Propane or liquid fuel for a camp stove? Either or. What I carry, if it's just me, is usually liquid fuel, and it's the denatured alcohol to run in my Trangias. If we're going with a bigger family thing, I have a propane Coleman that, especially if the wife's coming and she's going to want her own coffee and stuff, turn it on, click, she can cook, and I don't have to worry about her mixing or pouring or doing everything. So that's my advice. If you're doing it for a family setting, go with propane. If you're doing it just for you and something a little more streamlined, go with liquid fuel. Tony, well, it ain't a common thing down here, but I'm just saying I've eaten it that way. So, Marvin, hello. Yep, Wonder Bread, tomato, and some Duke's mayonnaise. Adding salt and pepper, and you're there. You might want to dice up a little onion on it. That's real good too. Yeah, Charles, I've eaten butter on spaghetti noodles before, which I've done buttered rice and buttered noodles like that, and egg flour noodles. Just cover them in melted butter and salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic. It's great. Oh yeah, you got boiled peanuts in Alaska, Gray Wolf? I'm shocked. But now hold on, things are changing. You know, when I was driving a truck, you got about halfway across Tennessee, and that was the end of sweet tea. And you got just about Houston, Texas. That was where sweet tea ended. If you asked for tea in a restaurant, it was either hot tea or it was unsweet. You know, and so that I'd been driving all them years, been all over New England, all over the Midwest. And I had gone up to spend 4 or 5 days with Dan Lutz. And of course, he's in Xenia, Ohio. And so I expected they ain't going to have sweet tea. And so I just drank sodas at every time we had a meal. And then I came home and I went back up the next year and was going to spend 4 or 5 days with him. We were going to do some videos together and stuff. And we went to Biscuit World, one of his favorite places in the world. And this is like the next to last day. I've been up here like 5 days, about 4 days. And we roll in, and he ordered and said he wanted a tea and da da da. Well, we start to pull around. He takes a swig of his tea, and he all just makes his face, and he rolls down the damn window, and he spits out, and he said, "Damn it, they gave me sweet tea." And I went, "What?" He said, they screwed it up. They gave me sweet tea. Pull this damn thing around. And we went back through the drive-in, the line again. And when the lady said, "What you need?" I said, "Do you have sweet tea?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Do you sell it by the gallon?" Yeah, we'll sell you a gallon. I'd like a gallon of sweet tea." And of course, Dan's going, "God, it tastes like," I don't care. It's sweet tea. I didn't know Yankees had discovered sweet tea. The only other place up here I knew of was West Virginia had sweet tea. But, hey, bang, bang, bushcraft. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well. Two guys in the Ozarks. Blackie, have you ever had pickle and mayo sandwich? I have had dill pickles with mustard. I have had sweet pickles with mayo. I had a girlfriend one time. She didn't want a hamburger. She wanted a pickle burger. She wanted, instead of a bed of lettuce, she wanted a thin sweet pickle, just make a mat and put it on top of. So I have eaten all the above. I'm not a huge pickle person. I'll eat them. Sometimes I really, really like them, especially at the beginning of summer. A little bit of vinegar and salt and fresh cucumber sliced into it, or a fresh pickle. Yeah, great. But she was big into it. So. Peanuts and Coke, correct, Randy? Well, if you're watching an Alabama football game, it had to be a moon pie, RC Cola with peanuts in it. That was for years. That's all I heard. Alabama games was coming on. You had to have him. It might jinx you if you ain't got them. They might lose. Some of the superstitions. Peanut butter and banana sandwich. Yeah. Anthema. Gotcha. Bang, bang. Awesome. Speaking of which, there it is. There we go. Bang Bang Bushcraft makes sheaths, guys. Right there. If y'all interested in one, here you go. Now, I happen to have the Pathfinder buffalo skinner in it because it's what I had that fit it. But really nice sheath. Look at all them rivets. Really nice sheath. Good thick leather. Nice wax feel. Really good. You guys wanting some sheaths? Bang Bang's on. Be thinking. Just saying. Grandpa Buckshot, pickle watermelon rinds. Oh, yeah. I can remember when we were kids and, the family be getting together and the granddaddy or whoever get up there and take that knife and start slicing everybody their slab. Well, you had to eat your slab and then you couldn't throw it away. You had to turn around and set it back up on the table or whatever because that was going to be washed and turned into watermelon pickles. So I remember that. A lot of times grandma wouldn't even let him hand out the thing. They'd carve all the meat off and give her the rind immediately because she didn't want the boys playing with it. Hell, drop it on the ground. You can wash it, can't you? So it was laying on the ground 5 minutes ago before I brought it over here to cut it up for him, honey. No. There's mentally clean and there's really clean. There's a difference. Kool-Aid pickles. I have seen them, and I probably have eaten them at some point. They don't come to mind. But yeah, they work really good like that. Grey Wolf, yes, it is. You can easily, they actually make very good pickles. Squash makes really good pickles, believe it or not. We used to make squash, there's refrigerator pickles. You take them and go ahead and slice them up and put them, and you put them in the refrigerator, and they're only going to be in there for like a week. And then these are fresh pickles. You're going to eat them, next 3, 4, 5 months, things like that. And then there's pickles you put up in the jars. They're going to be on the shelf, and that's going to be in the dead of winter when can't get nothing green. A lot of pickles come out then. You start seeing a lot of tuna fish with a lot of pickles, and stuff, because you couldn't get the green vegetables. They're out of season, which today we can go to Walmart and get it whatever we want, but you know what I mean. So, yeah. Jerry, there's always going to be a battle over food choices, football games, best stuff to drink, who makes the best potato salad, best kind of barbecue. Everybody's different. Two guys in the Ozarks. Blackie, are you talking about chow chow? No, I'm not. But you can include that in there. Chow chow was commonly made, but we ate it on Great Northern beans and those big lima beans that would have salt pork in them, and cooked all day. And then you'd top it with chow chow on top of it. Fresh homemade bread, a bowl with them beans and chow chow was a meal, and squash relish. But actually, they take squash and slice it thin, just like you make a pickle, but you can also do it with squash. And so it's pickled squash. And it's a winter stuff, Kenny Howell, good evening. Po' boy, exactly. Squash, onions, pickled peppers, all them things we get. It's a color palette for you didn't know what we're going to have available this winter, and you could mix and match. It's bland. Spice it up with chili peppers, make it hot. Add in little bitty hunks of, we got tons of hamburger meat because we butchered a cow. Well, you could add pickles, and you can make meatloaf, and things were just mixed and matched, until you found what you liked. Yes, Mitchell, that's exactly when you finished everything out of the pickle jar. You didn't throw that brine away. You just sliced up fresh pickle or fresh squash or even watermelon rind, threw it back in the juice, sealed it up, and put it in the refrigerator, and gave it a week, and you was ready to go again with something that was fresh and quick to eat. Grey Wolf, no, chow chow is a tomato, and it's usually a lot of times green tomatoes, and red tomato relish is what it is. And there's a few other spices in there that make it different from that. The reason they call it chow chow. But to me, it was always something that you'd put onto beans or something like that. You put pepper sauce onto turnips, collards, mustard. You put chow chow onto big beans and things like that. So a lot of families would have that just for that. Great Northern beans, whatever. Navy. I like navy beans better than I did Great Northerns. Wade. Yeah. Smoked mullet. Yeah. Yeah. True. Rodney, the old man of the forest, likes grits or rice with butter and sugar. Exactly. You know, bang bang. He makes a really good sheath, and I keep saying I'm gonna do a video for it, and I keep getting sidetracked, and I apologize for that. But it's going on the deck. It's going me to the woods in the morning. It's doing a video tomorrow, so sometime next week it'll be coming out. But I'm doing one, and Bang Bang Bushcraft who made this. So bang bang, post your contact information on here so that they can know where to go. And people who may watch this video after you're off will be able to know where to go to contact you to make them a sheath. Tennessee Smoky, exactly. Wayne, exactly. You can get a lot of magnesium stuff out of them, and it does help. Hot water cornbread, of course. But Tennessee Smoky, do you want thin and fried, or do you want fluffy and baked? I grew up on thin and fried. That's how my daddy liked it. And his favorite midnight snack was leftover cornbread crumbled up in a glass and covered with buttermilk. I never got to like that, but he did. That was his favorite thing. Yeah. Yeah. Gray Wolf, there is a mustard stuff called chutney. Saved by Christ. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. We make spoon bread, and spoon bread is cornbread mix that you add half a modern full-size can of cream corn and a half of a can of whole corn, and then you add in a whole tub of sour cream and a little bit of sugar and a little bit of salt and pepper. Stir it all up, pour it into an 8-inch excuse me 8-inch baking dish, and put it on 350 and cook it for about 25-28 minutes. And the center will firm up, and it looks like cornbread, but it's soft, and it's kind of like a pudding. And you cut it up in squares and keep it in the fridge. And my wife loves that for breakfast a lot of mornings during the fall or the spring. She'll ask me to make spoon bread. And so I'll make up spoon bread, and that's her quick grab breakfast in the morning. It's sweet, it tastes good, and it's easy to do. But that's spoon bread. You can get it right out of the Jiffy cornbread, puts it in their free little cookbook. But a lot of times I'll use Jiffy cornbread to make it. Sasquatch, yep. Milk and onion, yeah. Yep, I know who you are, Rodney, old man in the forest. Got you. We talked at my gathering. Tennessee Smoky, exactly. Cold out of the refrigerator, spoon bread. You want to throw it in the microwave for like 10 seconds. Not really, just take the chill off of it. That's all, but still cool. And then a big old thing of hot coffee. It's perfect breakfast on the go stuff. Martha White works good too, Justin. 2020, go right ahead. Dean P. Have you ever used Tyvek for camping? Yes, I have. And my recommendation is find a laundromat that ain't got a lot of people there. Get you a pair of old boots. Put the Tyvek after you've washed it in a, at home, out in the driveway or whatever. Put it in it. Make sure it's damp, not really wet, not really whatever, just damp. Put it into the dryer. Turn the heat off on the dryer. It'll still be warm, but turn the heat off on the dryer. Throw that pair of boots in it, run it through 2 cycles, and let them boots beat up that Tyvek, and it'll come out and it's like cloth then. And it makes it a lot easier for making a tarp out of it, and etc. It'll flex a little better, and it's not as noisy, because it's not so stiff. Tim Pierce, I agree with you. My granddaddy's favorite breakfast was balls and brains, and it was the testicles and the pig brains. He would take the testicles were sliced, slid over flat in a skillet over medium heat and cooked a little bit. And then he'd normally, when it was just about done, he'd crack him a couple eggs on top of it, so they'd be in the middle of the eggs. And then he would have brains he'd mix in there with the eggs at the last minute. And he'd slice up the balls and add the brains and all, and put it in a bowl and sit there and eat it with a little bit of hot sauce and crackers. It was one of his favorites. So I remember the first time I'd go over, my granddaddy was living in assisted living at that time. I'd ride my bicycle over and I watched him do that. And I thought granddaddy had lost his mind. But then one morning he said, "Here," and he handed me half a bowl. And you don't say no, you eat, Correct. However you pronounce that name, that hog jowl is cured over, which now in Italy is called polenta. In America, we call it cheese grits. You go up in Yankee Land in New York and, the Italian kitchen and stuff like that, and you can ask for polenta and you're going to get cheese grits is what you're getting. They just call it by a different name up there. Of course, Jeff, I hear you. I like to make bahia. And bahia is you take the jowl meat, and it's tough. I mean, you look at it and it looked like nylon running through it, all the ligaments and all from the cheeks. And salt and pepper it. Of course, wash it first, get the blood out of it, and put it in a crock pot. And then dump in 1 whole package of brown gravy, 2 packages of anjou powdered. Add just enough water to cover it. Set it on high. Put the lid on. Let it go about 6-7 hours. It'll take that long because it's that tough, and it will slowly dissolve. And after about 8 hours, you're going to go from like this much meat down to about that much meat. You're like from crock pots full down to where you can hold all of it in 2 hands that easy. Then you're cooking down that broth is what you're really doing. The meat is so tender it just falls apart. That's when you take 2 forks and tear it up, and that's when you dump the egg noodles or the rice in and let that cook till that's done. That's really, really good. That's bahia. And you can add onions to it. You can add peppers to it. Whatever you want. Wade, you're going to be surprised when you eat snake. All snakes and all reptiles taste alike. It does look like white meat from a chicken, but to me, it's always had a mouth taste of a more pork, like pork loin is what it tastes like to me rather than chicken. But chewing it, you got a head cold, you'd swear you're eating chicken. So, but they're all reptiles, and we know today that chickens are just another form. They're where the dinosaurs went is they became birds, so they're all related. Charles Martin, I hear you. Frog legs are similar taste to it. I mean, frog legs is similar texture, but frogs can have slightly different taste because of the environment they're in and what they're eating. So it's like we last year I went up to I will not say where, but a major gathering, a major event that I'd been asked to come, and I went to it. And on Saturday night, they were going to be serving at the end of the event for all of us that were there putting on displays or doing classes or selling stuff or whatever. They were going to be uh, grilling alligator for everybody. And I'm kind of particular on how you cook my dinosaur. And I had walked over there and watched them cooking, and I came back. My friend Randy said, "You gonna eat with us over? We're gonna go eat the alligator tonight." I said, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna pass on it." You know, nothing against it, nothing against them. They're doing their best. They did a great job. Just not what I want to eat, you know. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, Randy was having a good internal cleaning, we shall say. It cleaned him out pretty well. So, yeah, if your idea was to colon cleanser, this was it, you know. Michigan silverback, I know a lot of people like that, but I'm going to tell you the way it is. When you're 5 days hungry, snake looks pretty damn good. I'll be scared later. Right now, I'm hungry. Yeah, that's the thing, Charles. They taste like what they're around. So if the water's got a real strong sulfur taste, they'll taste that way. And to me, honestly, I think it's more of the water content in the meat that you're tasting rather than the meat. They don't seem to have a lot of taste on their own. So, oh yeah, wild game dinners. Yeah, Tennessee Smoky. We made wild game sausage in the family, and what that was it's the end. It's the end of summer. We're about to begin hunting season again, so that's when it's time to clean out the freezers and the stuff that is last year's game that didn't get eat for whatever reason. Well, that gets brought out and made into meals, stuff like that. But the stuff like rabbits and coons and squirrels and possum and stuff like that, that gets ground up with seasonings and becomes wild game sausage. You add a lot of spices to it. I mean, so hot that all you're tasting is the spice. And so we would make wild game sausage. And if you liked hot stuff, that was the stuff for you. But you couldn't tell what the heck you were eating because all you could taste was the heat. Yeah, gray wolf. I bet that antelope would be kind of a strong, gamey taste. The amount of chasing you have to do. Yeah, you can any of the alligator stuff. You can boil it. You can grill it. Anything you can do to chicken, you can do to a gator. And the somebody was pointing out the other year that they just recently had the big snake hunt in the Everglades. And they've talked about the 12 tons or whatever snakes of pythons and anacondas they pulled out of the Everglades. And somebody said, "What are we going to do to control these?" Start publishing recipes, because that's 200 pounds of meat that tastes like chicken. Carve him up, you know, add some sauce, it'll be good. Yeah, coon was what we'd always, if you're going to have a deer and you're going to grind it up for hamburger meat, you threw a coon with it because coon is so greasy. And normally one big fat coon was enough to equal one deer in hamburger meat and make something you could fry. If not, you had to add a little bit of beef fat or pork fat to it. Zatarans, yep. Old Bay, Zatarans, Cajun, gunpowder. There's a list of all the spices that we used to keep around just for that. I don't care for spicy stuff, but I ate a lot of it coming up because that's what there was. True. Blackie, what are your thoughts on the new alligator Alcatraz? Should be very effective for keeping people located. They've got a strip that they can deport directly from there. So, as far as that goes, it seems to be a great, money saving way. If you've got to set up something like that, that's a great way to do it. Wade, I understand. In fact, we prefer to catch possums live and keep them in cages and feed them scraps for a week to clean them out for that very reason. Because you'd have a dead cow on the field and you'd have 20 possums inside of him eating, where they'd gnaw a hole and go in. You'd see his belly moving, it was full of possums. So you always clean them out. Shane, good evening. Tennessee Smoky, yep. That's a pretty close list. Moose, bison, and horse all taste similar. I can attest to that fact, and that buffalo hump cooked right is really, really good. Is raccoon more greasy than groundhog? From what I have seen, yes. We don't have a lot of groundhog where I'm at, but I can tell you that raccoon is very greasy. Usually, when you start cleaning him, he is just layer upon layer of fat, more fat than he is anything else. Well, Chris, it's not really an escape in the middle of the Everglades. It's more like an episode of Running Man. Something's going to get you, because there ain't no place that's dry for a long way. Most places it's knee deep. The rest of the time, snakes, anacondas, pythons, gators of all descriptions. And it ain't just wide open. It's thick tangled, so you're having to fight through it. Yeah, they're not going far. That's the very reason they built Alcatraz, the prison, originally, because it was shark infested, and if you dove in that water, you're either going to get bit by a shark or the currents were going to sweep you out to sea. So you weren't going anywhere. Do you have armadillos where you're at? Yes, we do have them. And we do have several several Hispanics that make chili out of them down here. Wade, yep. That's exactly. They'll gnaw in through that hole because they can get into it, and they can't hardly gnaw through the hide, so they go inside and go to eating it from the inside out. Yep. I had a school teacher when we were in, I think, second grade. No, it was first grade. First grade, Mrs. Orr. And they'd taken us to a farm for a field trip. Like most of us had never seen a farm, right? But, the city kids, they'd never seen a farm. And the farm owner had let us, we're walking, and she's leading us, and we were supposed to go down the trail and come up to the fish pond. There was a big pier there, and he was going to feed the catfish so they'd come up and the kids could see, And there was a dead cow. And he warned everybody, so there was a dead cow, and we just hold your nose when we go by it. And the belly was just wriggling, and they had probably about 7, 8 possums in it. And so when we were coming back, Mrs. Orr was in the front trying to get everybody, and about the time she got it, one of the kids threw a rock and hit the carcass. And those possums covered in gore started coming out the back of it, and she threw up. I can clearly remember sitting there patting her on the back going, "It's okay. Just get it up. You'll be okay. You'll feel better." She was a city girl. She had never seen possums come out of a dead animal before. Oh, right. Chickens eat anything. I knew a family quite well growing up that they still lived out in the country. They had an outhouse, and the outhouse was in the chicken yard so that the chickens could eat the poop. I never went to a meal over there. I thought the world of them. They were fantastic people, best Christian people you ever met, to give you the shirt off their back. But I never was there at mealtime either. So. Well, guys, call it an hour and a half. I'm going to cut it short tonight. I'm feeling kind of tired. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for the comment and walk down memory lane. And bang, bang. Send me, go look on my description box down there. And I've got the Scalp Hunter at 36330. That's my email. Email me after this with your contact information. And whenever I shoot the video tomorrow, I will be able to put your contact information on that video if somebody wants a knife sheet from me. Well, guys, really enjoyed it. Y'all picked me up. I was feeling kind of low, but I'm doing better now. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great 4th. Be safe. And I hope to see all of you next week. Till next time, guys, God bless and safe journeys. Have a good night.